Siberia is the land where the armies of great commanders once walked, where cities were built and entire states were created. Few have heard of them today. The territories of Siberia have attracted the attention of many, but few have managed to get to the truth. They say that Hitler himself had his own plans and information about these lands, but what could have interested him here? Let's figure it out. What have you heard about the ancient cities of Siberia? Even official historiography has preserved information about ancient settlements that once existed in Siberia and Altai, even before Yermak. But for some reason, this data has been neglected by historians, archaeologists, and other specialists. After all, we are assured that Siberia is not a historical land. And do you know where this opinion came from? How strange it is the assessment of Siberia as a non-historical land was first given by one of the creators of the notorious Norman theory, a German in the Russian service, Gerhard Miller. The Germans decided to change with their pen what they could not do with an axe. And the approach itself, when the existence of ancient cities on the territory of Siberia is not denied, but also does not particularly interest researchers, has been preserved to this day. If you delve a little deeper into history and open the records of Siberian cities pre-Ermakov times, you will be simply surprised. There are a huge number of them here. Some remains of fortresses are found, but not all. In 1552, Ivan the Terrible ordered to compile a big drawing of the Russian land. Soon, such a map was created, but during the time of troubles, for some reason, it disappeared, and the description of the lands was preserved. In 1627, according to one of the orders, the Book of the Big Drawing was completed, in which about 100 cities are mentioned in the northwest of Siberia alone. When the Cossacks came to Siberia at the beginning of the 17th century, they no longer found large cities. Why? And it's simple. Many of them had already been wiped off the face of the earth. The Cossacks ran into small fortresses, called Gorodki, which they encountered in abundance. It is even reliably known that in the area of the Oktyabrsky metro station in modern Novosibirsk, there used to be a large fortress of the local Tsatur tribe, in Russian, Chati. Yes, just like that, they started building the metro already on the existing foundation, and these ruins were preserved until the very construction of the metro. But when it was already completed, everyone safely forgot about it. The legends themselves about Siberia, about the Altai Mountains, were known long before Ermak. They were even talked about in ancient Greece, where Herodotus told people that in these wonderful places, riches are kept, guarded by griffins. And if we can still think about the griffins, then the riches are definitely not worth denying. But it is worth mentioning right away that we are talking not only about gold, but also about information, artifacts, and relics that can be of much greater value than a pile of metal. Apparently, Hitler was also of the same opinion and assembled entire expeditions to understand what is hidden in Siberia. Have you heard of Ahnenerbe? I think, of course, yes, this is the most mysterious institute of Nazi Germany, which literally translates as heritage of the ancestors. According to official information, this society was engaged in the study of the traditions and heritage of the Nordic race, for which occult ideological documents and artifacts were collected throughout the Eurasian continent. And here the question immediately arises, why do they need to study the lands of Siberia? I think this will become clear later. Their main goal was, of course, to obtain information that would provide the key to the riddles of the Aryans. It will give artifacts, books, chronicles, everything that can lead them to world domination. That is why Hitler studied Tibet, Antarctica, looked for Shambhala, and then reached Siberia. Do you know how Siberia is sometimes mentioned in old chronicles? It is called Hyperborea. It was a legendary country, and it was the ancestral home of the Aryans. It is highly likely that the goal of the German expedition's search was to understand where their origins come from. However, its exact location was not indicated in any historical document, as was its actual existence, but the Nazis believed that the legendary state could be located in Karelia, the Ural Mountains, or the Kola Peninsula. So the northern expeditions of the Ahnenerbe were just looking for Hyperborea, but without success. Perhaps the Germans hoped to find a mention of it in the ancient Russian chronicles that they stole from monasteries. Well, they called the plan for the development of Soviet Siberia with just 3 letters, OST. It contained a program for colonization and domination in all lands. Its development began in the oldest educational institution in Berlin. Do you know how Siberia is sometimes mentioned in old chronicles? It is called Hyperborea. It was a legendary country, and it was the ancestral home of the Aryans. It is highly likely that the goal of the German expedition's search was to understand where their origins come from. However, its exact location was not indicated in any historical document, as was its actual existence, but the Nazis believed that the legendary state could be located in Karelia, the Ural Mountains, or the Kola Peninsula. So the northern expeditions of the Ahnenerbe were just looking for Hyperborea, but without success. Perhaps the Germans hoped to find a mention of it in the ancient Russian chronicles that they stole from monasteries. Well, they called the plan for the development of Soviet Siberia with just 3 letters, OST. It contained a program for colonization and domination in all lands. Its development began in the oldest educational institution in Berlin, Friedrich Wilhelm University, and most of it concerned Eastern Europe and the European part of the USSR, but some documents spoke about the fate of Siberia. According to the note, the lands of the USSR up to the Urals were to be colonized by Aryans. Particular attention was to be paid to the education of a new nation, Siberians. The indigenous peoples of Siberia were to become meek servants for the Nazis and cruel overseers of the Russian population. To increase hostility between the indigenous population and the Russians, it was planned to send 50% of the Czechs to Siberia, about 3.5 million people. By the way, the Ost plan was already curtailed in 1943, and Wetzel successfully survived the fall of the Third Reich and died only in 1975, since the court considered that he had not committed any crimes, and it is impossible to judge a lawyer for his intent. The question arises, if all this was classified secret, then how did it come to this day? The secret of the fascists' presence on the territory of the USSR began to be revealed in the summer of 1963 in Nyalova Bay, when the remains of a dead sailor were found on the coast of the Laptov Sea. Next to them lay a metal plaque, the inscription on which testified that its owner was a non-commissioned officer of the Kriegsmarine, that is, he was an officer of the German Navy during the Third Reich. Sometime later, in 1975, a warehouse of barrels that belonged to the Nazi Navy was discovered in the Lena River Delta. Was this a secret Nazi base for refueling and repairing submarines and possibly surface ships? These findings proved that German submarines operated in these areas. However, according to the official version, the military front was hundreds of kilometers to the west. But a number of historians claim that a secret Nazi base really did exist in these latitudes. And indeed, in 2005, an article written in historical circles was published in St. Petersburg. In his article, a St. Petersburg journalist spoke about a secret German submarine base accidentally discovered by Soviet helicopter pilots. The author wrote that the military made the secret discovery on the Lena River, on the coast of the Laptov Sea, where, according to official history, the Nazis had never been. Here is a brief summary of the newspaper. At the end of the area with barrels, I found a concreted slope. The permafrost conditions are especially favorable for the creation of such a base. Also contributing to this theory is the fact that such vast territories of the USSR were unsupervised because there were not enough hands for everything. Even when German troops came close to Moscow, their search teams did not stop their mission. In December 1941, archaeologists landed near Ryazan. But what was the Führer looking for there? Could the Russian hinterland really be hiding something so valuable that it was not worth waiting for the outcome of the battle? The very system of collecting information from the Ancestral Heritage Institute was debugged to the smallest detail. Without serious reasons, a group of archaeologists would not have been sent to the Soviet rear in the midst of the war. According to some sources, the reason for the expedition was the discovery by Soviet archaeologists of an ancient underground settlement near Ryazan. At that time, it was not known what historical and cultural periods the settlement belonged to. Perhaps some documents left after the excavations fell into the hands of German scientists, which aroused the interest of the Ahnenerbe. Most likely, the purpose of the search and archaeological expedition was to explore the caves and underground passages near the city. The group with all the finds had to be evacuated, but, as is known, only 2 members of the expedition were able to leave the forests. But remember, we talked about Hyperborea. According to old chronicles, you can find another mention of one city, Arta. They mention that there was once a city in Russia, along with Kiev and Novgorod. The inhabitants of these lands did not allow foreigners to come to them. They traded tin and furs. It is not known for certain where the principality was located. The goods that Artania traded indicate that it could have been territorially closer to Siberia. It is possible that the discovery of the ancient city could shed light on the culture of the ancestors of the Germans and indicate the connections of the local pre-Slavic tribes with the Aryans. But now it all remains a mystery. Share this video with your friends so that they too know more about their history.